Well, the hour having arrived and quorum being present, I declare this January 15th meeting of the Norwood Capital Outlay Committee officially in session. And we can probably dispense with going around the table and introducing ourselves unless anyone feels like he or she is not sufficiently known. Lydia, say hello, please.
Hi, I'm Lydia Sampson. I'm the Assistant Director at the World Memorial Library.
Right, so Lydia will be filling in for Charlotte tonight, who is an ex officio member of the committee, and we do have some things to discuss on the library fund anyway, so that's good. First thing we'll do here is we have an agenda and we have a contact sheet. And Matt, does it make sense, and we talked about this a little while ago, should we just go with everybody who has one, just using town email addresses? That makes more sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just had trouble creating the distribution list on the town, so I just did it out of my home. But let's, right, Mr. Hajada?
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
That avoids problems.
And we would not want to use my personal email, so.
Okay. All right, so, Maya, if you would use Norwood Kate.
Right, that one is my
Okay,
school committee email.
okay,
Yep.
and then Matt, it's mlane@norwoodma.gov. All right, very good. How do we get this done now? The administrative tasks have to be done well. Put the princess and the pea, these are problems later. Bob Donnelly, I know we already have yours. By the way, Bob, on the contact sheet, I don't have a phone number for you. If you want to give me one, I'll take it. If you don't, you don't.
I'll email you.
Okay, very good. And David, I'm going to put you in your town email address, which I know. Okay. Kevin, do you use the town email address?
No.
Okay, so we'll keep the personal one?
Yeah.
All right. Ernie, do you?
I don't even know if I have one. I think Patrick set one up for me, but
Okay.
so I'll use my personal one.
Keep that for Jack Blyden, I'll keep this one, and T. McDonough. We have the town email address, and everyone else we did. Okay, so we use three personal email addresses. Okay, very good. All right, Mr. Mizuko will be coming down soon to go over this presentation, but the first thing we wanted to do tonight, you see on the agenda, is to give a little bit of a review of what went on at the town meeting in the fiscal 2020 annual town meeting with our proposed capital outlay plan. And let's see, do you, how many of you have the actual plan with you? Okay, well, you know what, we can go right off this anyway. This will be sufficient if you have this, okay? What we're going to do tonight is we're going to kind of take a review of where we are, where we've been in the last 8 months, and talk a little bit about planning from here, so that when we get together the next time, we can solidify projects. I know that the school department is still working on some things to bring forward. That's fine. We have plenty of time for all this, and I think the compressed time frame is probably preferable anyway, to sort of starting in October and then restarting in January. So we'll go here, and then we'll see if we can set up something in maybe 2 or 3 weeks. We'll work with Mr. Riccardi, Mr. Thompson on the school side, and Mr. Cooper and Mr. Mizuko on the town side. All right, very good.
Thank you.
All right, we take a look here, Town of Norwood Capital Outlay Committee, January 2020 project update for fiscal 20. Mr. Mizuko has taken us through the various categories. We see the municipal parking lots. Do we want to read through all this right now, or would you rather just kind of review it and comment or ask questions? Okay. All right, so the parking lot situation is an ongoing one. We have 5 municipal lots that we're working on. Town meeting approved the reconstruction of all 5 of those, and the senior center, by the way. 3 of them have been designed in-house, as it says here, and we expect to have completed design work in February on those. Okay, we have no expectation at this moment that we would exceed the budget. Kathy Carney, am I safe to say that as far as you know?
You can exceed the budget.
Okay. Well, asking for additional funds. Okay, it's been done. All right, very good. Traffic signals on Washington Street, this is a priority. Original estimate was 1 year of design to be completed in the spring, with construction following. Design is ongoing and on schedule, okay?
It's down by House Pool.
Correct. By the way, we did, just real quickly, we did have at the selectmen's meeting last night a conversation about something called the Complete Streets program. which is a state-sponsored program through which the town creates a list of improvements it would like to make related to road work, sidewalk work, pedestrian access, bicycle access, and so forth. Puts it all together, creates a prioritized list, sends it into the state, and then we hope that year by year we get reimbursed for some of those things. I bring that up because at the moment, priority number 1 and 2 are both right down by this intersection. It's Short Street from Washington up to the bridge, right? So right in front of the Noble Space Center now. And then Washington Street sidewalk, we're talking about sidewalk construction, I'm sorry. So from that point all the way to the Walpole line, heading past the Coakley up the hill to the Walpole line. So that information will be sort of filtering into us as we go. We do need state approval to do them, but I can tell you that those two, at least for the moment, the board has to look at it too, and we'll have our own recommendations, but those are the top two that Mr. Ryan and Mr. Mizuko brought forward, okay? The complete streets.
The only other thing is that projects can't be inclusive of what the town has already approved. So, in other words, we can't try to sneak in something and say, okay, let's do the Washington Street lights including that. No, this has to be, they have to be totally separate. So everything that gets submitted for this program is totally separate than what we approve for capital projects. For operating.
So would you pitch like more second tier stuff, or?
I mean, the criteria, a lot of the criteria has to do with what's called environmental justice and pedestrian access, ADA compliance, and that kind of thing, where you are located to a school. So I mean, it's kind of a matrix of needs. But we do have, we kind of insisted on this, so we have control over how this goes into the state. And so the board now is, each of us as individuals looking it over. But there were 43 recommended projects. I mean, they'll take years to get done, years. You might
It's
get
only 1
one
year.
year, right?
The most you can get is $400,000, so if a project costs over 400, the town has to supplement the funding. And there were many projects that were greater than 400. If it's under 400, that's great, but the most you can get on any one project is 400,000.
Anyway, more to come on that, and also more information on how that program would dovetail with our overall capital plan. Let's see, traffic signals, Washington Street continued. That's the same thing. We have road work, all right, the FY 2020 budget appropriated $1.712 million for road resurfacing. That's a combination of Chapter 90 and town meeting appropriation. To date, the contractor has performed $1.564 million of that, of work paving all or a portion of 18 streets. So we're seeing an immediate benefit of the boost in funding. In spring 2020, we expect to pave Morningside Drive, Garden Parkway, part of Garden Parkway, Bond Street, and possibly Ridge Road. This may change in how roads fare over the winter. All right, and there's a list of streets that we have resurfaced. Turning the page to water main improvements. We're gonna go through all this, then we're gonna go through we're talking general about the future, okay? But just covering the present for now. Water main improvements, total to date spent on water relining replacement is $1.187 million. In spring 2020, we expect it's left over from the previous page. Okay. Location of water main improvements on Prospect, Highline, etc. Work included in the water main improvements is listed there as well. Mr. Mizuko, any further update on this besides what you have here? This is pretty up to date, right?
Yes, no, I want to apologize for being late. I was caught in the personnel board meeting. Do you want me to take over from here, or do you?
Yeah, I'll keep going for a little bit here, until I get tired.
I get, that only led to partial part of
Which
the
will happen soon. Let's see. The cemetery roof, bathroom, electric, roof work was completed earlier this year. This is on the vehicle building or the office building?
It's the vehicle building is what you would probably know it as. It's off to, if you're looking at the cemetery, off to the left-hand side. I always think of the vehicle building as the one on the way to the garage, to the dump, but it, we had pictures of it last year. The roof had started to deteriorate inside and needed a little bit of work. So what's programmed in next year is the actual work. We're just looking at the design of the ADA compliant bathroom and what electrical upgrades are needed.
Very good.
So it's the one that are by the water tanks?
Yes.
Thank you.
Here's Mr. McQuaid. Hello, Mr. McQuaid.
Well, we'll be back, nature's calling.
Yes, thank you for that update. Hi, Molly, how you doing? Send a couple of these back. Tony, you have yours, okay? I lost my page. All right. Thank you. Let's see, continuing on, laptop or desktop replacement for Norwood Public Schools. All units have been delivered, set up, or in use. Project complete. Good? Good, thank you. Tactical vests, body armor, tactical helmets units have been ordered. Original delivery time frame was October, November, now anticipated by the end of February, okay? All right. So there's a delay, but we'll get them. We got design services for the police community room. We've got 2 quotes. All right, and Mr. Mizuko, jump in anywhere here if you feel like it needs to be
Yeah, I
fleshed out.
can jump in. So the police community room is one of 2 projects that we may hold off on. We're just looking at the design now. We may hold off to looking at implementing anything. Once we have a facilities department in place, we think there might be a couple of projects, and the operator word there is might, where we can cut down on the cost by doing some things in-house. So Mr. Riccardi and I have had those conversations. I do want to say might, because again, as of July 1st, assuming we go forward with the facilities department, there's not all of a sudden an enormous amount of additional capacity. But we looked at some projects that we're saying, well, what can be done in-house? We're anticipating that we're going to be allocating more resources to a singular facilities department, so that's contingent on that. That would all have to happen, but this is one of 2 projects. You'll see it with the fire kitchen in a moment. I believe there's one other one that we're saying we might actually start to see some savings, which we didn't really project early on, by looking at a shared facilities department. And some of it's just being able to do a little bit more in-house with some pooled resources than having a contract out for everything.
Okay. We also have here HVAC design, public safety building in the same building here. And that's a pretty big project, isn't it?
Correct, and that's not a project that would be impacted by a facilities department. That's a large, complex project for the replacement of the entire system. The RFQ for the designer is out. We're gonna bring on a designer. It's probably gonna take them at least 6 months or so to go through the design process. We are trying to make sure that we get fully designed projects, that we are able to time them up with the town meeting appropriation, that we're going out to bid, that we're actually getting a bid in hand, and then going to town meeting with an accurate number for the actual project. There's a possibility that the borrowing for this, which will be a large item in next year's capital plan, we may actually not see the borrowing authorization until October, because again, the number is likely to be too large, that we don't want to just go to town meeting and say, well, we're thinking it's $1.5 million. Let's borrow $1.5 million, and we come in and find out that it's 2.1 or it's 980. So, but this is not a project that would be impacted by changing facility management. This is a large project. You'd have an OPM,
Okay.
contract project management.
Continuing in the same building, replace stainless steel toilets and LED lights upgrade both sides of the public safety
Yeah,
building.
and just real quick, the LED light upgrades, they're both sides of the public safety building, and I believe we have LED lights for the library in this year. Those, we reported to everyone in, I think, September, October. They're on hold until we have an energy manager in place. We're scheduling the interviews for the energy manager position in the next, probably the next 2 weeks, so we anticipate having somebody on board within the next couple of weeks. And we're gonna effectively hand these projects over to them. Now, they may be overwhelmed getting started up, especially because it's a grant-funded position shared between 2 towns. And they may not be able to, and then we would just go about the projects as we had initially intended, but we wanna make sure we have the right person in place.
Okay. Very good. Let's see, what do we have here, Nick? The design services, fire department kitchen, you referred to that a minute ago. You wanna say anything further?
Similar things, Mr. Riccardi and I had some conversations about what we might be able to do to see if we can see some significant savings rather than having to contract out every aspect of the process. And believe it or not, between prevailing wage and the difficulty in getting a sub-vendor in to do a small part of a project, there might just be a couple of small things that don't seem like they're a lot of work, and all of a sudden it's saving us a fairly substantial amount of money. That being said, that may not be the case once we actually get everything fully designed, and the project may go forward as we always intended.
Okay. Recreation design services, civic center elevator. Salamone and Associates will begin design services in February. We should begin soliciting bids in March with a bid opening in late March, construction could begin as early as May. Okay. That's the Civic Center elevator. Do you want to give us, anybody want to give us an update on this building? Are we prepared to discuss that at all right now?
Kathy here?
Yeah, I can give you an update on that. We had gone out for design, we had the design done, we went out to bid, got in with our prices, and as you know, we went to town meeting, got the additional funds. I then had to coordinate with the PBC because we said that we would give the project to the PBC, the building committee.
Yep.
And we've got a meeting scheduled for tomorrow night between the designer, the general contractor, and the PBC to discuss the scheduling on that.
Okay.
So I'm hoping, we have to work with the departments, especially on the second and third floors, to make sure that we don't have the elevator out of service when we need to have it working for any of the elections, the primaries, any of that stuff. So that's why we want to meet with the PBC and the general contractor and make sure that they understand that not only do we have to not have the elevator down, I've also got to figure out workspace for the departments to be able to deal with the public down here on the first, or the ground or first floor that's handicap accessible, you know, by the streets, so that we're gonna have to bring our employees down to them. So I've gotta make sure that I've got space available, computers available, printers, or anything else that might be needed for the workers and for the residents.
Okay.
So we're gonna coordinate all that. Once we get the schedule, then we'll coordinate with those departments on the
You
second and
mentioned,
third
you
floor.
mentioned an election, we have, there's the presidential primary on March 3rd.
Right, we
So-
wouldn't, yeah, I don't know if we would be, there's going to be a lead time in ordering a lot of these
We get the town
components
election
of
a
it.
month after that.
Right, and so I'm working with the town clerk's office to make sure that we have exactly their dates, that we need to make sure the elevator is still up and running. We're not gonna take it down when we know that the clerk's office or any of the other offices are gonna have a busy time.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, continuing recreation design services, exterior of Civic Center design services for this project are estimated to total over, design services, $300,000. And we're looking to go out to bid later this year. Is that correct? I get all that out, all right?
It is,
Mr.
this is
Zucco?
one of those projects that may, you know, has the potential to sort of be a cost runaway, but we've got to take a step back and decide, do we want to properly investigate why we're seeing some issues with the exterior of the building? How much do you continue to patch something, but how much do you continue to pay to say, pull it all back, fix everything that needs to get done? Does it become $1 million or $2 million project? That's always a fear. But we go every couple of months where part of the building falls off and lands somewhere on the outside, so it's a balancing act between we want to do it right versus we may be looking at $500,000 in engineering and $2 or $3 million worth of work after that.
Okay.
We have to move forward, but we're waiting on proposals to get a detailed analysis. We don't want to just, we're hesitant to continue to patch the project. I mean, we continue to make whatever repairs we have to make to keep the building safe, but it's at some point we've got to address it. It is an older building.
Matt, did you have a question? All right. That building, the building was built in what, 1928 or something?
Yes, around the same time as town hall,
Okay.
28, 29.
All right, so all this work we're gonna put into it, is gonna keep it going for another 50 to 60 years over there pretty well, Mr. Hajar, what do you think?
If it's done right, like Tony says, absolutely you
Okay,
can.
all right,
If we just keep patching, you're gonna have more problems.
okay. All right, very good, because we got a new basketball floor in there, you know, something real
We got a lot
nice.
of new things over there, so.
Okay, all right.
I
good.
wish the exterior of the building was as cheap
Yes.
as bleachers and a basketball floor. You know, the fun stuff is like $30,000 and the stuff you have to do is like $3 million.
All right, the next, let's see, next thing, library LED lighting upgrade. Lydia, you're here as well, and Tony and Lydia, do you want to take it away and talk a little bit about that?
Just similar to the other LED lighting project, we're just waiting until we have an energy manager on board for two reasons. One, that's actually gonna be right within their portfolio, and it's somebody else we can have manage the project as opposed to asking Lydia and Charlotte to, you know, get up on a ladder and get the correct bulbs and do all the electrical work. It's, we have an energy manager on board, that's
Oh,
what
you're
we're
being
asking to do.
facetious, I'm sorry, okay.
I'm sure they would if we asked them to,
We
but.
talking the whole, the entire building?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Anything to add to that?
No, thanks for the update.
Pretty simple, okay. All right, very good. Airport wildlife fence, all right, yeah. Project is in the design phase, good to design the fence, all right? Go ahead, Mr. Mizuko, tell us more about your favorite subject, the airport.
I just love the Norwood Memorial Airport. We're designing the wildlife fence, which will actually be a good, not only good for the airport, it's a good aesthetic improvement 2 phases. We'll end up likely doing half and then half in the following year. It's not particularly complicated, it's just an awful lot of fencing that needs to get done. And it's one of those projects that if you remember last year what the fence looked like, it was in pretty rough shape, so it was time to get it done. And this is one of those projects that, again, is 95% funded by we only end up coming up with a 5% match.
Okay, very good. Let's see, planning for the Saints lots. What do we plan to do with the Saints lots?
That's actually just, it's categorized as the planning department, the Saints lot. Have we signed the P&S, Bernie? Have we added the insurance on it?
I haven't seen it, but they may have.
So we're paying for it, we're acquiring a lot, so there'll be more projects coming forward through the CPA on the Saints lot as time goes on.
That probably does become a CPA thing anyway, right? I mean, that's really what the idea was when we.
Yeah, the money that we appropriated was just for, it was the purchase of the lot, it was for some study and analysis and a little bit of cleanup, but eventually if you're gonna wanna have a trail network throughout there or something, that's all gonna require funding, which will come through, I would expect, the CPA.
Okay. All right, very good. If anybody has any questions, by the way, you want to interrupt, feel free to do so, but otherwise we'll just keep going. And then, Mr. Mizuko, you have something else you want to hand out, or this is it?
No,
for-
I just
Okay.
brought my copy of the budget.
All right, and then we'll go into some of the things we're going to talk about for the future. All right, DPW replaced, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do you wanna go through some of these quickly? Some of these are just vehicles that
Yeah,
we're getting.
no, go ahead. Pick one, it's fine.
Truck 31's purchased is in operation. 35 and 45 were larger trucks. They've been ordered, POs issued. We anticipate delivery in February. We do try to space some of our fleet purchases out throughout the year, so we're not just rushing and buying everything in July. The next item, DPW lawnmowers, it's the same thing. We're purchasing 2, one in the fall, one in the spring, just to make sure we're
All
balancing
paid
out
out of
the age.
operations?
I have to go back to the
Okay.
the analysis to see what was paid out of where.
All right.
BRAT, which is the brush rapid assault truck, scheduled to be delivered next month. That's again one of those vehicles that you can't just go buy it off the lot.
Yep.
The MARV, the medical response vehicle, is in operation. You may see it around town. It's a red, it's a big red Tahoe effectively, so it sticks out a little bit, but it allows us to not have to send a $300,000 truck out. The fire rescue boat is in operation, has been delivered. Police cruiser.
Kevin's the captain.
Yeah.
I was kinda waiting for a comment.
The Admiral, yeah.
As much as Mr. Mizuko's happy about the airport is how much I'm happy about the fire boat.
We are naming it the SS
We
Connolly.
should call it, name
Well, the
it
recovery
name it
boat.
the SS John Hayes. He was even happier about it.
We should call it what it was, it's a recovery boat.
Recovery boat. Thank you, Captain Connolly. Police cruisers, so we have ordered cruisers. Unfortunately, we thought we were being really cool by wanting to go towards Ford's new hybrid police cruiser, police explorers. So we're about 7,500 other police departments in the country, so Ford has a backlog on the vehicles. We continue to get assured ours will be delivered soon, but I can tell you I've heard that before. There just ended up being such a backlog of vehicles ordered for folks who wanted the new hybrid. We then made a call and said, you know what, can we just do it next year and can you give us regular vehicles? And they said, no, the production has shifted so much to the hybrids that there's equally as long of a wait if you want.
No, no, you're stuck.
Yeah, so, yeah, we tried. The fleet's hanging in there. We've been
One
told
of the
40
things
times.
you've done here, this is out of the operating budget too. which is-
Correct, so police cruisers are in there, because we'd love to eventually get some of the DPW vehicles in there, because you know you gotta replace them every year, especially with a police vehicle that they get particularly beat up. We're hoping to see some maintenance costs drop as we switch to the hybrids and maybe the fuel cost, but we of course have to get them in and actually experiment with them before we can confirm that.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
but are these the same type of vehicle that Ford was having problems with the carbon monoxide?
No, no,
Okay.
it's their hybrid Explorer model, and they had a couple of years ago an issue with some models having a carbon monoxide issue that ended up being with the window in the back, and the exhaust was actually going up and causing an issue. So when they would test vehicles, oftentimes that back window was opened up. We don't particularly have those models here, but that ended up being the issue because I've used them in another community.
Okay.
This is just so many people want the hybrid that they weren't geared up to build that many of them.
The Priuses, Kevin.
A little bit beefier. They are pursuit rated, they're not Priuses, but they're pursuit rated hybrid vehicles. Ford E150 van for the school department delivered and in use. Ford wheelchair van for the school department, special ed transit delivered and in use. The Carillon restoration, we are working on writing the RFP for renovation. We hope to begin to issue that soon in February and accept proposals. It's a complicated project, it's a historic preservation project, it's CPA funded, there's no standard, give me a copy of RFP documents for a Carillon out there, so that one will take us a little bit of time. And there's also not an abundance of engineering firms out there who you say, can you get me the specs on restoring a historic Carillon? They sort of look at you and you struggle a little bit with it. The Lower Pond Pavilion project, which was a CPA project as well, design is complete, we'll begin soliciting bids in the spring, hopefully for a summer construction.
It's down on Walpole Street, right under the, you get out into Cotton
That's the
Street.
big one.
Yeah. Good.
The Lower Balch, or Elliott Park, design services are being completed for the accessible ramp, and the project hopefully will be completed by July. I just want to make a quick comment, Ms. Maloney asked me this earlier. Sometimes when we reference design services, sometimes it's actually an engineer designing our project. Sometimes they're actually preparing the bid documents for us. And from a procurement standpoint, we can prepare any bid documents, but what we're asking for are the specifications on something that might be complicated. So even something as simple as carpet, we have a standard RFP to replace carpet, but they're really getting into the materials that you're using, how you're gonna go about using the materials, how construction is gonna go in. And it actually, carpet's a fairly simple one, but you'd be surprised how much goes into just exactly what kind of carpet you should put into a building. So the more complicated a project. So I always use design services or engineering, but that's sometimes what it encompasses. Because I got that question about a future project, are we paying an engineer to design carpeting? No, but we want to make sure that our actual bid specs are specific and they're on point. And that ultimately protects the town in any case of litigation down the road, to make sure we're asking for and getting what we want.
Okay, thank you.
Bond Street Playground is been delayed for a year. We were this close to getting the poured rubber in the fall, and we just had to delay it till the spring, unfortunately. So, before I go on to the next slide, any questions about current year projects?
So far, so good?
All right, so early projected changes. What this is we should, within a couple of weeks, have the completed FY '21 capital plan. We still have, the school committee's making some changes on their side. We're still compiling information. But what we're anticipating for next year, the library's made a request to swap out 2 projects. They wanted to get some painting done in 2 years and to do an RFID project this year. They would like to rearrange those projects. The
Can you
painting,
tell us what RFID is, please?
radio frequency, I forget what the I and the D is, but it's a chip system for the books and the materials.
Okay, thank you.
I think ID might even be identification, but they're just asking to swap those projects. The painting is becoming more of a need. We would have to combine design and painting in one project, but we feel we can likely do that. So that would just be a swap. The police chief has requested to hold on purchasing dash cams. Technology is changing. He's not so sure that's the direction we want to go in and whether or not that would be worth the investment, so he's requested a hold on that. Not to say hold, and he'll let us know in a couple weeks if he wants to do it. He said he would not like to request that project for this year, possibly next year, but he wants to wait to see where some changes come in with technology and whether or not that ends up being a good investment for his department.
Okay.
Always for departments saying, please don't do that project this year. Design services are programmed for work at the high school field, so I believe we've tentatively programmed in for this year money to look at design for the high school field, including possibly the concession stand and the lights.
Right.
What's changed with that is the track really does need to get done, so we may need to, we'll probably end up swapping all those projects around. What we're gonna have to look at is we're gonna want one design process. We may do the track next year, as an example, and then we may have a separate discussion about, do we want lights up in the field, do we want a concession stand? But we have to tear up the track, so the time to design the whole project is now. Make sure any conduit that has to get laid gets laid, make sure any pipes that get laid, because, you know, we always catch a lot of flack when we repave a road, and then we have to dig it up to fix something. So just like the track, we don't wanna spend a lot of money on a brand new track, and then in 2 years, we decide we wanna put lights up, and we say, hey, let's dig up the brand new track that we just spent a lot of money on, and run a conduit and put new lights on.
We're lucky enough to have Paul Riccardi and Superintendent Thompson here, so, Paul, you and I have talked about this, this need a little bit. The track in the field up there is 10 to 11 years old, right?
Right, and they both had a 10-year life cycle.
Okay.
The track is, if you go up there, we can probably still get away with it this spring. After this spring, the track officials might say it's too worn out to have the kids be running on it. The field is, we're spending $5,000 to $7,000 a year now on average repairing rips and tears because it's just wearing out. What I will say is we could have put in a better track, we could have put in a better field 11 years ago. We have what we have, and it needs to be replaced.
Do you have you talk about perhaps doing something of a higher quality when we do the project. What kind of lifespan would you expect on a really top quality?
I would say
track
you should
and
probably be able to get up to 15 years. It all depends on the use.
Yeah,
So if you think about what potentially is gonna happen to that field, if in fact we get a new junior high school, and if in fact it ends up being built behind the old high school, on the two fields that are there now, which potentially could come out of service.
The junior high.
The junior high, excuse me, could potentially come out of service, which would put more use on that field at the high school. More use, more wear, shorter lifespan. But if it
but you
was.
probably don't wanna wait through that process,
Oh, we
because the
can't
junior
wait,
high's gonna take
we
you 5
can't,
to
we
7
can't
years
wait
from
through
here.
that process.
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
this, Tony and I have had this conversation, this project should be done, and totally done when the junior high school starts, so we have some relief for youth sports, if it ends up behind the existing junior high.
And part of the reason we're looking at making sure we're looking 5 years ahead is just this, we know we have to get the track done to keep using it. So let's take a step back, and we don't wanna just say, let's put in the cheapest track we can do, we wanna say, wait a minute, what else are we doing, what else is going on? That's really the core of the capital planning that we're trying to do, is say, wait a minute, now's the time to do it, so that way in a year or two, we're not sort of finding ourselves short, or saying, well, we wanna put lights up, and, well, sure, let's dig up the new track, or all of a sudden, we're not doing the track and we lose fields at the middle school. So it'll likely be a large design cost, and hopefully with the estimate for the track in there, we could always do the design and come back at a fall meeting for the actual appropriation for construction, but we're gonna wanna make sure we look at the whole project and we know everything we need to do, and then we do any work we need to do. So once we've done the track and field, that portion of it is done.
So to review what we mean by, quote, the whole project, unquote, it's a track, a field, lights, right? Are we talking also concession stand, lavatory?
Concession stand would be in the total number. But, as Tony said, you can piece it out.
No, I understand, but you talk about designing the whole thing, and you're
Right.
right, you're probably gonna have to do it piecemeal just for budgetary reasons, but if you go, the reason I mentioned the concession lavatories, are really, at the moment, to put it where they sort of thought you'd have to really wedge it in there, and we ran into problems at town meeting with regulations regarding number of toilets.
But part of the reason was we're trying to get the money without going through an actual process to try to get a waiver to reduce
Right.
the numbers. I think doing it the way it's being presented now is, if we know we're going to attempt to put a concession stand in with the appropriate number, we have the time to submit an application for a waiver for a reduction, which has typically been granted to other towns that have requested it. We just tried to rush it, and we didn't have time, so there was no way to do it, and I think that's why it got rejected. People didn't want to spend it because of that, so
Okay.
I think we have that, an opportunity to try to get a better deal, as they say.
We do, Ernie, we do have $250,000 set aside for that project, by the way. Town meeting, go ahead.
Just a question, Paul, or Kathy may know too. There's always been a rumor that when they built that track,
There's no-
that
there's
there was
no-
no conduit
no
under there?
conduit under
Okay,
there.
because everyone says, well, they put the
No.
conduit there, all they gotta do
They
is
got
throw
the
the.
caps, the plastic covers.
Everybody knows the rumor.
Those are for the sprinkler system. for
Okay,
the
so there
field.
is no electrical
There's no
conduit
electrical out
running
there
up,
for
okay.
lights.
So to
There's
Tony's
never
point,
been.
to Tony's point, I agree, and it's gotta
Yeah.
be, obviously, it's gotta be done quick because the track is failing.
Right.
Is to inspect that whole thing, and
Right.
I could spend hours talking to you about concession stands, because the alumni, so we tried to do it, and, why we're in compliance today, but when you add more bathrooms, you're out of compliance, is still one I never get an answer for. But,
Beyond me.
The rule is that they take like
Yeah.
Sullivan Stadium, or
Yeah,
Gillette Stadium,
that's what-
whatever the hell the name of that place is. And that's the formula that they put on you based on the amount of
Right.
people. But the plumbing board will give waivers for smaller venues to that ratio that you have to approve, if you just gotta approve it. And if your field was in 100 feet of the school, you can count the school bathrooms.
Yeah.
yeah, and that's what they
Yeah.
they went under.
Right.
We just
I
didn't
mean,
have
we
time
looked
to
at
do
all
it.
kinds, I won't go and get tied down with concession stands, we looked at everything, but there is space up there. It may be, over by the tennis courts, it may mean moving the shot put thing or the,
Right.
but there is,
There's that,
we've
there's
been
that
up in
little
there.
area. The other thing too, though, I do want to move on, but I think this topic this is a big project. You're coming down the line, and I think we gotta do it. We're gonna thresh it out now, but the tennis courts are oriented incorrectly.
The wrong way.
Right, they should be like turned 90 degrees.
Right.
Which you really couldn't take that footprint and do it.
No.
I don't think,
No,
anyway.
you couldn't.
So
You'd
you-
lose
Part
courts
of
if you tried
comprehensive
to do
design
it.
services is, again, we know we have to do the track. Let's get somebody in to design it, and they can include that feasibility portion of what's everything we need to do. We know the track has to be done fairly
Mhm.
soon, but design everything in a way and get us options for it, and then you're gonna do this. This is a step 2, this is step 3, this is a step 4. They might come back and say, you know what, the easiest thing is to do a whole lot of it at once. However, we really gotta get the track done for next year.
Okay, just last question for me on this. There is an area, an elevated area up as you head toward the water towers. Is there any possibility that that area, which is really not used for anything right now, could come into play in all this? Or do we
On the
have-
school side or on the?
It's on the other side of the
Yeah.
fence. So I mean,
No,
there'd probably
on
have
the
to
other
be
side of
some.
the fence.
It's
Like
down
average-
At the
I don't
bottom,
know
at the
who
base
owns
of
Bottom
the
of the
water
water
tower.
towers, there's
It's
a
the
cleared
base of
out
the water
area
tower.
that's used for
Storage, I
DPW and
think,
storage.
yeah.
I mean,
Well, anyway, that
Possibly, yeah.
could be part of the design thing, but you do have the tennis courts, the field, the track, the concession stand, the lavatory, and the lights.
yeah. We have some room up there because we don't throw the javelin out back anymore. The javelin they throw out front.
Okay.
So, you know, it is just the shot put area that we have to think about.
Okay. All right. Anything further on that, Doctor? Do you want anything on that?
I think we've covered it.
Okay, very good. Thank
So,
you.
the lights are going to be the school committee's request, I'm assuming, to town meeting. I'm
I mean-
assuming that's the way it has been since day one.
Right, but I think this is something, the school committee has not discussed this. But me personally, I think, you know, it might be something where we'd wanna talk to the rec department, because we anticipate that there may be use of that field beyond, you know, like we were talking about youth sports and things like that, so I don't really know. It's something that we would need to kind of start to think about and how that would make sense.
Well, from my
Initially, sorry.
personal experience, all the athletic fields that I've been on that have athletic lights, like Natick, like Framingham, they are in Braintree, they are not inside of a neighborhood.
I don't
So-
understand the point. What's this got to do with who? Well, your argument is whether or not it's wise to even put them up.
I'm saying that that's a Pandora's box.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a discussion for
I
tonight.
know.
Yeah, I mean, if we decide we
I'm
want to bring it
not
forward, we're
saying
going to
that.
shoot it down.
All I'm saying is expect,
But I would expect that we would design, I think it's acceptable to do an overall design that would include them, and if the town meeting wants to take them out, they can take them out.
Right.
You know, just a comment, you know, I live behind the Coakley and, which is a lot of lights. And I think modern technology of lighting is much different than it was 10 years ago. That is fully flooded from the back of the Coakley all the way down to the baseball field, and it's much better than it was
I don't
10
think-
years
I
ago.
don't think the argument you're gonna get from the neighbors is the lighting.
It's the noise.
It's
Yeah.
the noise and it's
I-
the people going through the neighbors.
Let me just give you a
So
footnote
that's-
to back up
Right.
what Mr. Donnelly said. I have a friend that lives left field at Balch, and when the new lights went in there, I asked him, how do you like the new lights? And he told me they're terrible. And I said, why? And he said, I used to be able to cut my grass at night in the summer, and I can't now because there's no overspray of the lights. It's just directly on the field.
He has to sweat like the rest of us.
Well, I mean, but I mean, do we all sort of agree, though, as Mr. Hajar brings up the point, it's marching band is really probably what bothers people more than the lights. But still, I mean, we'll let the community have the
Right.
conversation. We should at least be ready to have something to present to them and show them, this is what we're interested in doing. You tell us how much of this you want to do.
So-
I'm sorry, that's pretty simple. You stay with the same rules, you make an ordinance for the same noise rules that we are abiding by now. When the lights turn on and the lights turn off, that doesn't affect that, so.
Okay.
But the school committee has not discussed this in particular, but we did, have a committee that looked at athletics as a whole and ways that we could improve the athletic program. And one of the things that they recommended was having some opportunities to have evening games. That, the Dedham had like their soccer, when Norwood played Dedham, they had the girls' game at 5, I think, then the boys' game at 7. It was a Friday night. They had like the youth soccer players there. It was like a whole big thing. Norwood has to play all of its soccer games at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because it's dark by, 4:30 or 5. And so that limits parental involvement. It limits like opportunities for
Community involvement.
Yeah, for the community to be involved in this. And then the other thing is that I know that a lot of the youth programs struggle with getting enough field space. The fields down at the Coakley are overused. They're grass. The DPW works really hard to maintain those fields, and they're not able to keep them in really great playable condition because they're just overplayed. And the one field that we have in town that's designed to be played on 24 hours a day without degrading too much is the one that has no lights.
I think we're gonna have we'll have probably a good community conversation about this, but at this point, what we're looking at is making sure to design so that we have options in the future and not design so that we limit ourselves in the future.
Yeah, that's fair.
Sort of the core of the capital planning mission. Any other questions on that particular
Okay,
project or
schools,
change?
fields, all right, go ahead.
The public safety building does need a new alarm panel. That's come up recently. It was a proprietary system that was installed. We should probably replace it with a more standard market system. We're getting estimates on that now. That will likely be an addition. As you know, we have projects coming in at different years of the project, so that'll likely be an add for this year to be done this year. There's lighting in some fields being requested in the upcoming year. One of them, Mr. Maloney, if you want to refresh my memory, we discussed is, which, one of the schools?
I'm sorry, lighting?
Yeah, in one of the fields. We just talked about it last week. I can't recall which.
We talked about it last week? I've completely forgot. I'm sorry.
It's in an email somewhere from Travis. So there was just about a $70,000 or $80,000 request to add lights to one of the fields that currently doesn't have them, one of the park areas. And there are some requests coming in for a vehicle for senior transportation and a small recreation transportation vehicle, which would be I hesitate to call it a minibus, but a minibus. The senior vehicle that we're looking at would be a sedan-style vehicle for some of the one-on-one appointments. We have some challenges in our senior transportation that the bus is not, it does get people to medical appointments, but it's not designed to get people to, one person to this appointment here, one person to this appointment here. Folks who rely on the ride, I believe the ride can't take them to Foxborough. So Foxborough, despite being right there, if they rely on using the T's to ride, they're not actually able to use it to Foxborough. They have to actually try to contract with another transportation company just to go 10 minutes down the road to the Cancer Treatment Center in Foxborough. So we've identified some holes in our senior transit program that we think we can plug with a sedan, and we think we found money to reduce some of the funding for the current taxi program, the transfer program. We don't seem to expend the full amount there, so we think we can move some money from that, some money from the COA's grant program, fund a part-time driver, purchase a sedan, greatly get one donated, perhaps then somebody on the auto mile can help us out, but that would be a single vehicle to help people with some of these shorter trips that seniors really require. And it's really, I know there's always a discussion about, do we purchase a van to take seniors to medical appointments, or was it to take them to events? But one of the number one things that helps seniors stay in their homes is the ability to get the medical appointments. And it's one of the things family members struggle the most with, trying to help an elderly family member with, is making sure they can get to their medical appointments. So I think we'll see that as for comparatively few dollars, we'll be able to add some bang to the buck for the senior center. And the rec department will be looking for a vehicle that their programming is increasing and sort of growing exponentially. That if they had a vehicle, they feel they could do more field trips, more programming, and will be a benefit to them. Those, of course, will have to be weighed on their merits, just like any other project coming forward. So at that point, we have some unknowns on the next page. Those are what we're looking at for projected changes, and I almost, did I skip over the elementary projects? No, they're on the next page. So some unknowns at this point. As I mentioned, the HVAC system of the public safety building is likely going to be the largest investment next year. We may wait till October for an actual borrowing authorization because we want to make sure we're getting the number right, because it's got the potential for a lot of swing. If you totaled up everything on the project list right now, we're looking, give or take, in the $7 million range. Last year, I think that doesn't include water and sewer, but last year, if you didn't include water and sewer, we were in the $9 million range. We have a fairly healthy free cash number, so we should be able to pay cash for a majority of the things that we should be paying cash for. The next meeting will likely have the full debt service analysis of where we are, what's dropping off. If we borrowed at
Yeah,
100%,
Mr. Good, can we do that?
75%.
Next meeting, we'll talk about debt service or updating. That'd be a good idea. See what we're doing.
We'll be able to balance it all, and if we borrowed for 100% of this year's capital, which we wouldn't do, we would pay cash for some, what would the impact be, 75%, 50%, et cetera. And there's several projects at the elementary schools that are in the plan. Those are currently being reshuffled. I know the school committee hasn't finalized what the list is yet, is that correct?
Agenda for next week.
The dollar amounts will likely stay the same in terms of the total work that's getting done, but it's just
Talking
moving
about
around.
lighting and,
Some
It's-
floor work and
It's the
security
PA,
upgrades.
primarily the PA systems.
PA system?
In the elementary schools and the card access systems throughout the whole school district.
so these are all things that we were planning to do, but we realize
Right,
certain things
yeah.
have become urgent and
Right,
have to be moved.
right.
Yeah, okay.
So instead of replacing windows this year, it might get next year. So there's a little bit of shuffling that
Okay.
may go on there, but probably still within the range. If there was one project I was to say at this point that would get kicked off the longest, it might be the HVAC system at the public safety building, only because it's gonna be a complicated design process. We don't wanna rush it, because we wanna fix the system once.
How many
Right.
units are up there? 6?
I believe there are 8 or 9 rooftop units, but 2 of them are not working.
I think there's 3 rows of 3, I think it's 9.
3 rows of 3. We replaced number 4.
Yes, RTU 4 was replaced just a couple of years ago.
Okay. And then there, you said there are a couple of others that just, you mean that failed?
Yeah, they were supposed to be used to bring and move air around. They weren't actually like a cooling system.
Okay.
And so those aren't working, I've been told. And then they have, I believe, 4 of the split units that are doing like the dispatch area and one of the records area or something like that. So we're out right now for design services on that. We'll be taking proposals at the end of the month on that as well, from designers to just see who's out there, and that's qualification based, so we'll do
Okay.
an analysis of it. But yeah, they've got a lot of units up there. Some are newer than others. We had a problem cooling one area, and so we have put a split in. And like I said, there are 4 splits altogether.
Okay. All right, well, that lies ahead. Any questions on what we've covered so far?
On the projections, do
Yeah.
you want to include existing authorizations as well as the unknowns?
Yeah, we'll sit down and we'll go through what we have.
I mean, we have a good idea what's gonna be on for fiscal '21, right?
Yeah, what we'll do, Mark, is we'll sit down and we'll sort of peg them out for the school projects, and if it ends up getting swapped out, we're within the ballpark.
We always expect to see sort of a severe runoff in the out years, and we know that's gonna change as things go on.
It never actually runs
We just
off,
do the
but-
best we can. We try to stay within the financial guidelines of the non-utility revenue guideline, but it's just helpful to know, because it might, it might tell you how you deploy your free cash and the other cash sources. So, all right, we've covered that. Do we have anything else from the library side or the school side that we want to discuss now? I know you're all working on something anyway, so it's forthcoming, but we've covered a couple of big things in detail already. Okay. All right, let's see. What was the other thing, Mr. Mizuko, we talked about?
We want just a brief update on the middle school. Dave, you want to take that, or would you like me to?
Yeah, we are tentatively scheduled to attend the feasibility, the board meeting at MSBA to be moved into the feasibility stage, which is where we do initial designs and, best project sort of scenario. They are still looking for a few other items from us, mainly around building. I sent an email out yesterday to a few people, need some help with that. We also need to put together a budget for our feasibility study. We have a draft of that at this point, so we got some paperwork to tie up in next week. And then hopefully we'll be at the board meeting and get waved into the next stage of the process.
We're going into the SBA, what date did you say?
The
February
13th, Thursday the 13th of February.
13th of February.
We think we're on the early side. It's not official yet, but it's a hold the date time.
All right, very good. Mr. Mizuko, do we have anything you want to let us know, one on Access Road, and two on any potential build-out of the building that the light department has vacated?
So Access Road, the light department project is 99.9% complete. They move in on Tuesday. If all goes according to the plan, they're actually moving in over the weekend, so the building will be open as of Tuesday to the public, and they will be operational. We'll be doing a ribbon cutting in an open ceremony, I think February 29th or so. I have to confirm the date and the time. So they're up and running. The SRE building at the airport is just about ready. They're really completing punch list items. They have moved into the building. We'll have that available for a tour at some point, but they're still getting some wiring and a couple other small issues taken care of. The light department facility at, right down the road here, we're likely gonna move some offices in there for a couple of reasons. The head end is staying, there still will be staff working out of the head end. That building is also a substation, so we still actually do a lot of switching out of there. There'll be no light department staff in that building on a regular basis, so we may look at moving some offices from town hall there, because we won't be able to, wouldn't be able anytime soon to get rid of the building. It's in fairly good shape, actually. It's been kept up well for years. It's ADA compliant, it's asbestos free, it's in relatively good shape. The linemen's quarters, which are, well, the building is structurally sound is how I would describe it. I don't know if I'd call it great for folks to actually have to work out of, but that's gonna become a cold storage room of sorts for us. We actually pay anywhere between $15,000 and $20,000 a year for record storage in outside facilities. We believe we can eliminate probably 90% of that and condense some of our own file storage all right on site.
Okay.
So there'll be a savings there and a reuse of that particular facility. And then at some point, the facility up on Subway Hill will be vacated mostly by the light department. They'll still keep a few things outside, and we've pegged that as a place for school, storing some school supplies, some recreation supplies as well, just areas where we're either renting space or we have trailers out in a field somewhere we think we can condense down there. We'll have to make sure we're swapping everything around properly with the light department, but it looks like it'll be a net benefit to everyone to have some extra space available.
Okay, very good. Any questions? Mr. McDonough, any questions? Anybody? Yes.
Just one, a couple of years ago, and I just, curiosity, I don't know where we stand, Kathy may know. This building was a hot topic like 2-3 years ago, and nothing ever, I mean, I saw plans where this wall was coming down, and this was gonna be a big conference room, and we were moving the health department here, there, to the, I heard rumors it was going to the Civic, all that. And nothing ever came, we never appropriated the money, right, to redo. It just took on a life of its own, I think, right?
Well,
The wiring and everything.
We held the project last year. We've gotten some initial looks at what the building needs, and I think some point this spring, the selectmen will be taking up the question of how they want to move forward. The building does need a lot of work. The mechanical, electrical, and plumbing in the building, some of it is still original to 1928. The problem is to do all of the mechanical and the electrical and the plumbing and everything else to modernize the building. You're looking at a very large project.
Right, yeah.
Many millions of dollars.
That's what I think, the ball got rolling, and once you open up a wall, you know what happens when you open up a whole wall, you know.
And also, the light department, the vacating of the building down the street plays into this as well.
Alleviate some of the.
We'll get some of that done, move a couple of offices down there, and revisit this building.
Yeah, I expect we'll be doing that in the next few months and bringing a proposal forward. It's just, the building needs a renovation. It's a large, costly project. It's historic town hall. It's right downtown. We want to keep it and preserve it. It's just, we've got to go into an understanding it's going to be a lot of money. We'd be looking for probably relocating offices for something like 18 months, and it's not going to be an easy project. So not that we don't want to do it, but it's a matter of.
I think originally the price was like $900,000, and then it just went.
Ernie, that was John and Carol.
Yeah.
On that last leg.
He put a number down on a piece of paper. We're gonna do it for this.
Once they did the initial looking behind one wall, and basically, I think they said, you're looking at least, I think, Kathy, $1 million just on electrical.
Yeah.
Right? Before.
That was for the work down
That was
here.
just,
Yeah.
So that was-
900 grand might design.
I just curious, I just don't remember
No,
if we
it was a big
appropriated any money.
discussion, you're right. We were
Yeah,
all-
if we ever appropriated money to.
With nice pamphlets on up,
Oh,
all
yeah,
new
beautiful.
offices, that's great. Pamphlets,
He was always skeptical. We have met with, was Willard Calso, and Fur's an engineer who works for him, and they've done some preliminary design work for this floor and way up top. And, but we haven't met with them since, probably since last summer. at
They
least.
had mostly done a space analysis
Yeah.
to see what do we have now, you know, if we have this many employees, what kind of space are we gonna be looking at? I mean, to answer your question, there actually had been a borrowing for the $900,000.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And the money was borrowed, and so when we went out to bid on the elevator, we were short about $100,000. And so we went to town meeting and they gave the approval, and the board, the permanent building committee also gave the approval for us to use the some of the money that was for the actual town hall renovation
For the
towards
elevator.
the elevator.
Yeah, which
And
makes
then-
sense.
Right, and
Yeah.
when we do the elevator, it's gonna, you know, we're not gonna have to redo it again when we do modernize the rest of the building.
Right.
The elevator will be brought up to code for 2020, and it will meet all of the requirements that we need. We don't need to move it or anything.
You know, Kathy, the thing is that we took the elevator and the bathrooms. If you could do nothing else, do them, right? You know, get them ADA compliant and everything, but even just getting into bathroom work in this building now is just.
It's tough because the doorways in this building aren't made for wheelchairs.
Right.
So that when you look at the bathrooms, the men's room on the first floor by the treasurer's office, there's a wall there and you're gonna have to take down the wall in order to make the door wide enough to get a wheelchair in there, to make it ADA compliant. So there's a extensive work that has to be done, looking at our current conditions and then what ADA would require.
We're going back in time on some of these.
You walk into that restroom and you're walking into like 1950.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just once you take down a doorway or a wall.
that's
or
it, you're done.
you know.
Basically, we can paint the building and replace the light bulbs. You do anything more than that, it's gonna cause a lot of
It
problems.
does.
So in answer to the question, that lies ahead.
That lies ahead.
Worthy project, it's just, it's a costly, complex endeavor to
Yeah.
undertake.
And there's some of the sort of other stuff that can be done. It's smaller, it's tangible, it brings immediate benefits, and a lot less aggravation, you know, that we can do. A field, you know, a PA system in a school, something like that, you know.
I could use money for furniture for this building.
Yeah.
Be a bigger boat.
$20,000.
I might be able to do one office for $20,000.
All right, is anything, there's one thing I know, I did talk to Travis Farley, and I volunteered myself on this one. They're putting it together a little, he's got it, it's all together, a little committee to look at the Father Max pool situation. I said, well, I'll represent Capital Outlay on that, and we're gonna have a little meeting or two. But if anybody actually has any opinions on Father Max, the field and specifically the pool house, if we wanted to keep Father Max as a functioning pool, we probably ought to replace the pool house. And you know what the pool house costs, because we went through it down at the Haws a few years ago. So we're gonna take a look at the future of that facility.
Although is Father Max pool a little bit smaller than Haas, the
Yes.
pool itself,
Yeah.
so then the,
And then there's a different, if I
Right.
remember correctly, I think it's a different style pool.
right.
One of them, I think Haas is a floating pool,
The depth is a little bit different.
and Father Max is a permanent pool, old-fashioned concrete.
The other thing too, though, Tony, would you just real quickly, and I don't want to extend the meeting longer than we have to, but we did talk a little bit about the Haas pool, because the Haas pool itself needs some work, doesn't it?
And that's really what we're looking, it's not just about Father Max, it's taking a step back and saying, what are we doing with pools in the community in the next couple of years? Where do we want to invest our money? Because Father Max needs a bathhouse at some point, it needs some work as a pool.
Piping and pump.
Yeah,
accessible.
and then, Haas needs some work, and then that's one of those questions of, well, do you spend $100,000 to patch it? Do you completely redig it? If you're gonna do that, do you spend the extra money to make sure you go ahead and, expand it? Do you take the spray park out of one and have the other just be a spray park? So it's just a committee to look at those different options, as we're going forward. Again, just to try to plan out what are we doing here with our facilities and where do we want to best spend those dollars? And it's not just about not spending the dollars, but it's could we get something ultimately better for the community for a certain price point rather than just spending a lot of money and continuing to operate.
Okay. All right, that lies ahead too. So I think probably what we'll do now, that both the town side and the school side have some work to do on sort of nailing down, the plans from each wing. I think probably the best thing to do is to take the existing 5-year plan, supplement it as you wish. If you feel things have to be moved around, or that this one it's suddenly become more urgent than we thought, it has to be moved up and so forth, we can do that, so that when we get together again next time, we've got a 5-year layout that more or less overlays. We lay it over what we have from town meeting and make the comparisons, make the adjustments. Take a look at how much we might recommend borrowing, because one of the charges of this committee is to recommend how things get paid for. And Mr. Good will help us with that on debt assessment, and we'll take it from there. So I'm thinking probably.
First week of February, if you want us to.
Yeah, the school committee is meeting a week from tonight.
Yes.
Okay, so that means, so if we met 4 weeks from tonight, is that too late? By the way, is Wednesday okay?
I don't know.
You'll be coming back.
My schedule
No, I know the 12th, I'm
is
not available.
iffy on Wednesdays.
Wednesdays is good then.
You don't have the 30-second clock to take care of.
No, but I do have to deal with the wrestling schedule.
All right.
When's school vacation?
School vacation would be the 17th to the 21st.
All right,
Is
so
that February no,
So how about,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's February
that
vacation.
would be February vacation week.
But that was what
No,
Mr.
just
Kajar
ask-
asked me,
I was
was
just
when
asking.
was February
The
vacation.
19th is 5 weeks anyway, so
How
So
about
the
the
school
12th?
committee's meeting on the 5th, but the 12th I have
All right,
available.
and
but
do we know
Tony,
about-
did you say that
Yeah,
didn't
the
work for you?
12th I am out of town.
where are you?
Yeah, that's fine.
I think
Where are
I'm
you at?
in,
12 is not quick.
India?
no, I was supposed to be and then I canceled my trip
12 is
there.
4 weeks.
I think I'm in Georgia.
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 Well,
Bulldogs.
let's do it on the Thursday.
Go Tigers. Bulldog.
Thursday night's fine with me. We've always sort of free-formed this committee. Selectmen Tuesday, school committee, but it's not,
Which Thursday?
planning board Monday,
Yeah, what's
right?
Thursday? I think
The
it was
6th,
Thursdays
is
would
that
be
too
good.
soon?
All right, how about Thursday, the 6th of February?
We'll be a lot further along by then, so we can,
Is that possible too?
Okay.
Does Finance Commission have anything scheduled for,
We don't have February scheduled out yet, but so,
and you usually don't meet on Thursday?
we do meet on Thursdays.
That's what I meant to say.
But I
We
would
actually
plan
meet
for
on
that date, and when we do
Mondays,
start
Wednesdays, and
scheduling, I would
Thursdays,
say.
depending on.
I have a
Great.
conflict.
Okay, so we can make it work. Is that,
I'm
is Mr.
available
Mr.
any
Quaid
Wednesday
offer a
or
quick
Thursday
whip?
that week.
What was your quip there?
No, I just said that FinCom usually meets Monday, Wednesdays, or Thursdays, depending on who on their committee is available,
Yeah,
generally.
Well, that's almost half a week.
yeah, I know.
They don't meet each of those days.
Oh, okay.
I think we've been trying to schedule them Thursdays as a rule, though, generally, lately.
Back
Well,
in
what do you
the
say we
day,
take a crack at February 6th,
it's
and
always
then
Wednesday.
maybe you can
7
hold
p.m.?
them?
Yeah,
Fair enough, is that okay?
let's put it,
All
yeah,
right. And you don't have wrestling that day, February 6th?
no, not
You're
on
You're
Thursdays.
not in Georgia that day?
no.
Anybody else out of town?
I'll
Mr.
say
Ricardo, you'll be
no.
here, won't you?
I'll be here.
Lydia, you'll be, would you be?
So February 6th, 7 p.m.
February 6th.
February 6th.
Technology stuff that we want to present to.
Mr. McDonough, we avoided a 3-hour meeting tonight.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
I have time again.
We'll have more one-hour meetings.
More 1-hour meetings are better than fewer 3-hour meetings.
Wasn't there something a couple of years ago
I don't think 3
on the police department communications center?
The dispatch?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a project approved a year or two ago to do work on the dispatch center. a couple of punch list things, and there's some stuff on the fire side, that
No, it's.
might need some additional work,
Is that
but
tight? Is that this
Yeah.
The second floor?
more or less.
Yeah.
There's some issues on the fire side, but it's
How's that working out?
not really related to the dispatch equipment portion of it, it's just
They got more room at the
we didn't budget for furniture for them.
Yeah,
So, you know, we put in new dispatch terminals and they're sitting on broken chairs and a couple things like that, so.
They had a gym where they kept the library.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, hold on.
Second.
Oh, that's
So,
right, yeah.
like, Monday we.
We got a motion to adjourn in a second. There's no discussion about it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Thank you very much, everybody. Send out a notice and we'll revise the contact list.